Emily, could you pass the potatoes? Oh wait, I forgot, you're used to serving people, aren't you? Samantha's voice cut through the warm hum of my father's birthday dinner like a shard of glass. Around the oak dining table in our Santa Monica home, the family froze for a second, my mother's smile tightened, my father's eyes dropped to his plate, and my brother Mark coughed into his napkin. I kept my hands steady as I lifted the porcelain bowl. Here you go, Sam. It's Samantha, she corrected, not taking the dish. And I wanted the garlic mashed, not the plain. Don't you pay attention at that diner of yours? The Salty Anchor isn't a diner. It's a place where you wear a stained apron and scrape gum off tables, Samantha finished, flashing a perfect smile at her boyfriend Brian, who chuckled along. Face it, Emily. You're 28 and still taking orders for minimum wage. I was running a marketing department at 25. The familiar ache settled in my chest, that old, tired weight of being the family disappointment. Little did they know that for the past 5 years, my shifts at the Salty Anchor were cover for something else entirely. The tattoo on my ribcage, a ghost hawk encircled by stars, itched beneath my sweater, a constant reminder of my real life. Emily works hard, Mom said softly, patting my hand. And she's always been there for us. Right, like when I needed her to co-sign my student loans? Samantha's eyes narrowed. Oh wait, she couldn't. Because her credit score is as pathetic as her career prospects. My phone vibrated in my pocket, once, twice, a distinct pattern I recognized. The encrypted communicator. A standard check-in from the team, probably. Or maybe something more. Nighthawk was on low alert, but protocol demanded I acknowledge all signals within 15 minutes. Not now. Not here. Let's toast. Dad boomed, raising his glass of Pinot Noir. To family, to health, and to another year of being together. We all raised our glasses. Samantha stood, her designer dress catching the chandelier light. Actually, I'd like to say something. A cold dread trickled down my spine. I knew that look, the gleam in her hazel eyes that meant someone was about to get hurt. Usually me. Emily, she began, turning to me with mock sympathy. I know it's been hard. The failed college attempt, the string of dead-end jobs, but we're family. We don't judge you. Even if the rest of the world does. Brian snorted into his wine glass. Sam, that's enough, Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. He'd always been softer on her, the golden child, the one who actually made something of herself. Or so he thought. I'm just saying, Samantha continued, stepping closer to me, that maybe it's time to grow up. Stop playing at being a waitress and get a reel. My communicator vibrated again. Urgent pattern this time. 2 short, 1 long. I shifted in my seat, my training screaming at me to respond. But revealing myself now, in front of everyone? The security breach would be catastrophic. Agent identities were protected at the highest level for a reason. Career, Samantha finished. But I guess some people are just meant to serve. She raised her glass for the toast, and as she brought it down, her wrist slipped. Crimson wine arced through the air and splashed across my white blouse, soaking through to my skin in an instant. Gasps around the table. Oh my God! Samantha cried, her hand flying to her mouth. Emily, I'm so sorry. You know how clumsy I am. The lie hung in the air, thick and sour. I saw the flicker of satisfaction in her eyes before the faint concern washed over her face. The wine felt cold against my chest, spreading in a stain that looked like a bloodstain. How fitting. It's fine, I whispered, standing up. Excuse me. I hurried toward the hallway bathroom, the fabric clinging to me. Behind me, I heard Samantha's stage whisper, see what I mean? No backbone. Just takes it. Inside the small bathroom, I locked the door and leaned against it, closing my eyes. Breathe. In. Out. The discipline of 100 training exercises kicked in, calming my racing heart. I pulled the communicator from my pocket, a sleek, black device that looked like an outdated smartphone to anyone else. The screen glowed with a secure message, status check. Perimeter secure? I typed my response, all quiet. Maintain watch. Another message appeared, command wants update on Phoenix Intel. Confirm receipt by 2200. I checked my watch, 9:47 p.m. I had time. Phoenix was our code name for an ongoing operation tracking financial flows to suspected domestic cells. Intel suggested something big was brewing, but we hadn't identified the target yet. A knock at the door made me jump. "Emily?" Samantha's voice, sugary sweet. "You okay in there? Need help cleaning up?" "I'm fine." I shoved the communicator back in my pocket and turned on the faucet, dabbing at the stain with a towel. Useless. The wine had already set. "Look," she said through the door, her tone dropping to a venomous hiss. "I know you heard what I said out there. It's the truth. You're embarrassing this family. Dad's 60 today, and instead of celebrating, he's worrying about his loser daughter who can't even keep a man, let alone a real job." My hands clenched. I could break the door. Could break her. My combat training included 7 ways to disable an opponent in under 3 seconds. But that wasn't who I was. Or rather, it wasn't who I was allowed to be here. "Say something, Emily. Or are you just going to hide like you always do?" I yanked the door open. Samantha stumbled back, surprised by the sudden movement. For a second, I saw something in her eyes, not fear, exactly, but a flicker of uncertainty. As if she pushed too far and wasn't sure what would happen. "I'm going home," I said, my voice flat. "Tell Dad I'm not feeling well." Running away? Typical. She crossed her arms. "You know, Brian's friend owns a car dealership. He might be able to get you a job in the service department. You'd look cute in coveralls." The communicator buzzed again. Persistent. Something was wrong. I pushed past her without another word, heading back toward the dining room to grab my purse. "Where's the fire, Em?" Brian called as I entered. "Oh right, you probably have the early shift tomorrow. Gotta scrape that gum off before sunrise." Laughter. My father wasn't laughing, but he wasn't stopping it either. He just watched me with that tired, disappointed expression that had become his default when looking at me. "I'm sorry, Dad," I said, leaning down to kiss his cheek. "Happy birthday. I'll call you tomorrow." "Emily, wait," Mom started, but I was already moving. As I reached the foyer, my phone rang. Not the communicator, my civilian phone. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but the area code was DC Government Exchange. I answered. "Hello? Emily Carter?" A man's voice, crisp and professional. "Yes. This is Agent Harris with the Federal Protective Service. We have a security alert for your residence. Could you confirm your current location?" My blood went cold. The FPS? That was cover. They never contacted me directly unless it was a Tier 1 emergency. Something had gone very, very wrong. "I'm at my parents' house in Santa Monica," I said, keeping my voice low. "What's the situation?" "We need you to evacuate immediately. There's been a credible threat identified. A team is en route to your position." "What kind of threat?" I was already calculating. Nearest safe house was 12 minutes away. "Extraction points. Family protocols. We can't discuss over an unsecured line. Please proceed to the north corner of the property and await extraction." The line went dead. I stood in the foyer, the sounds of my family's laughter drifting from the dining room. My father's birthday. Samantha's cruel smiles. The wine stain on my blouse. And now this. A threat. Coming here. I looked back toward the dining room, my training warring with my heart. Protocol was clear. In a security breach, you cut ties. You disappear. You protect the mission at all costs. But that was my family in there. My communicator buzzed again, and this time the message was flashing red, code black. "Phoenix compromised. Exfil immediate. Code black. The highest alert. Mission blown. Agents exposed." And I was standing in my parents' foyer with a wine stain on my shirt, my sister's laughter in my ears, and a target on my back. "Emily, we're not done here." Samantha's voice carried from the hallway as I stood frozen in the foyer, the phone still pressed to my ear though the call had ended. My training screamed at me, "Move. Now. North corner. Extraction. Code black means you're burned. You're a liability. Every second you stay, you endanger the mission and everyone in this house." But my feet felt rooted to the polished hardwood floor. Through the arched doorway, I saw my father blow out the candles on his cake, the flickering light illuminating the tired lines around his eyes. My mother's hand rested on his shoulder. Mark was refilling wine glasses. Brian whispered something in Samantha's ear that made her smirk. A normal family. A birthday. Mine. Not yours. Not really. You're Emily Carter, Ghost Hawk team lead. You're a federal asset. A ghost. This life, the wine stains and the sibling rivalry and the parental disappointment, it's cover. It's not real. Except it felt real. The sting of Samantha's words felt real. The ache in my chest felt real. My communicator vibrated in my pocket, a continuous, urgent pulse now. The extraction team was close. I had maybe 90 seconds. Going somewhere? Samantha materialized in the foyer doorway, arms crossed. Brian loomed behind her, a perpetual shadow with a smug expression. Don't tell me you're actually leaving. The night's just getting started. I haven't even brought out Dad's real present yet. I have to go, Sam. My voice sounded strange, detached. The operational calm was settling over me like a second skin, pushing the hurt and anger into a locked box. There's an emergency at work. At the diner? She let out a sharp laugh. What, did someone run out of ketchup? Or did you finally get fired for being incompetent? Brian chuckled. Maybe she forgot to wipe down the milkshake machine again. Health code violations are no joke, Emily. I ignored them, my eyes darting to the large front window. The street outside was quiet. No unusual vehicles. But I knew they'd be there, 2 unmarked SUVs, for agents. Ghost protocols. They wouldn't approach the house unless I signaled or they confirmed a direct threat. Actually, you know what? Samantha sauntered forward, blocking my path to the door. Since you're in such a hurry, maybe you can clear something up for us first. For Dad. I glanced at my watch. 60 seconds. What are you talking about? Brian noticed his wallet's missing. He had it when we arrived, but now it's gone. Her gaze was steady, accusing. You were sitting right next to him at dinner. The accusation hung in the air, so absurd it took me a moment to process it. You think I stole his wallet? I think you're desperate, Samantha said, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper meant only for me. I think you saw a wad of cash and figured Dad would never suspect his own daughter. But Brian's family is loaded. He notices when $500 goes missing. Heat flooded my face. Not from shame, from a fury so white-hot it blurred the edges of my vision. 5 years. 5 years of lying to them, of letting them think I was nothing, of enduring their pity and contempt, all to keep them safe. And this was the thanks I got. I didn't take anything, I said, my voice dangerously low. Now get out of my way. Or what? Brian stepped up beside Samantha, puffing out his chest. He was a big guy, former college linebacker gone soft around the middle. He thought his size intimidated me. He had no idea the kind of men, and women, I'd put down in back alleys from Karachi to Kiev. You gonna cry to your manager? My communicator pulsed against my thigh. 30 seconds. I was running out of time. Check your jacket, Brian, I said, my eyes never leaving Samantha's. Or your car. But I'm leaving. I moved to step around them, but Samantha grabbed my arm. Her nails dug into my skin. No. You're not running away from this. Not again. Just like you ran away from UCLA when things got hard. Just like you run from every real responsibility. That stung. Because it was the family narrative, the story they'd all agreed upon. Emily, the dropout. The quitter. They never knew the truth, that I'd been recruited out of my sophomore year by a man in a dark suit who showed me photographs of things I couldn't unsee. Who told me I had a gift for patterns, for languages, for seeing what others missed. Who offered me a chance to be part of something bigger than myself. I'd taken it. And I'd lied to them ever since. Let go of me, Samantha. My voice had gone flat. Deadly calm. The tone I used right before a breach. She didn't let go. Instead, she raised her voice, projecting back toward the dining room. Dad! Mom! You need to hear this. Emily stole from Brian. Footsteps. My parents appeared in the doorway, my father's face pale, my mother's hand over her mouth. Mark trailed behind them, looking uncomfortable. What's going on? Dad asked, his voice weary. Emily took Brian's wallet, Samantha announced, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. He had $500 in it. For Dad's present. That's not true, I said, but the protest sounded weak even to my own ears. I was watching the window, counting down. 20 seconds. Where was my team? They should have been here by now. Then empty your purse, Samantha demanded, her eyes gleaming with triumph. Prove it. I looked at my father. Dad, I would never. Just show her, Emily, he said, not meeting my eyes. So we can put this to rest. The betrayal was a physical blow. He didn't believe me. After everything, he still defaulted to believing her. My mother's eyes pleaded with me. Please, honey. Just so we all know. Fine. I'd play along. I'd empty my purse, they'd see nothing, and then I'd walk out and never look back. Ghost Hawk would reassign me. New identity. New city. I'd become someone else entirely, and the Carters of Santa Monica would be a memory. I yanked my arm from Samantha's grip and reached for my bag. As I did, Brian's hand shot out and grabbed it first. I'll do it, he said, a nasty smile on his face. In case you try to hide it. Give that back. My operational instincts were screaming now. In my bag was my secondary communicator, my lockpicks, my encrypted flash drive disguised as a lipstick. Civilian contraband. If he found any of it. Oh, what's this? Brian pulled out the lipstick tube. Nice color. Too bad you can't afford it on a waitress's salary. He tossed it to Samantha, who caught it with a smirk. Then he began pulling out the contents, my actual lip balm, my keys, a crumpled receipt from the grocery store, a pack of gum. And then, from the bottom of the bag, he produced a sleek, black leather wallet. My blood ran cold. Brian's eyes widened in mock surprise. Well, what do you know? He flipped it open, fanning out the bills. 500. Exactly. A collective gasp went through the room. My mother made a small, wounded sound. My father's shoulders slumped. Mark looked away, ashamed for me. Samantha's smile was a victorious, vicious thing. I knew it. I knew you were a thief. I didn't put that there, I said, but the words sounded hollow. Of course she'd planted it. While I was in the bathroom, or when I'd gone to get more napkins earlier. It was so obvious, so clumsy. And yet, they all believed it. I think you should leave, Emily, my father said quietly, not looking at me. And I think you shouldn't come back until you've gotten some help. The finality in his voice broke something inside me. The last thread of hope that maybe, someday, they'd see me for who I really was. Not the failure, but the protector. The one who'd spent years in the shadows keeping monsters at bay so they could have birthday parties in safe, sunny California. You believe her? I whispered. After everything? You actually think I'd steal from him? No one answered. The silence was answer enough. Samantha stepped closer, her face inches from mine. I could smell her expensive perfume, see the cruel light in her eyes. You're pathetic, she hissed, low enough that only I could hear. You always have been. The family embarrassment. I wish you'd just disappear. Then, she did it. Her hand came up in a sharp, sudden arc. The crack of her palm against my cheek echoed in the silent foyer. Pain exploded across my face, hot and shocking. My head snapped to the side. For a moment, there was only stunned silence. No one moved. No one breathed. I slowly turned my head back to face her, my cheek burning. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard my mother sob. My father's shocked inhale. Samantha looked startled by her own action, but the triumph quickly returned, mixed with a flicker of fear. She'd crossed a line, and she knew it. But she was in too deep to back down now. That, she said, her voice trembling slightly, is for lying. And for stealing. And for being a constant disappointment to this family. Tears stunned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. I just stared at her, my gaze flat and empty. The face I showed terrorists before an interrogation. The face that said, "You are nothing to me." My communicator chose that moment to vibrate again, a frantic, pulsing rhythm. Extraction was here. And they'd seen everything through the window. Protocol dictated they intervene only if my cover was completely blown or if I was in immediate physical danger. Was I in danger? From my own sister? Before I could process the thought, Samantha pulled out her phone. "Smile, Emily," she said, her voice bright with malice. Let's show the world what a thief looks like. The phone's camera light flashed, blinding me. She'd taken a picture of me, red-cheeked, wine-stained, looking every bit the shattered mess she wanted me to be. I'm posting this, she announced, her thumbs already flying over the screen. Let's see how long it takes for your boss at the diner to see it. #FamilyThief #karma. That's when the front door exploded inward. Not literally, but it might as well have. The heavy oak door swung open with such force it slammed against the wall, and a man filled the doorway. He was in his late 40s, with close-cropped gray hair and a bearing that screamed military even in civilian clothes, a tailored black suit that did little to disguise the powerful build beneath. His eyes, the color of winter sky, scanned the room in a fraction of a second, taking in every detail: my stunned family, Brian still holding the planted wallet, Samantha with her phone raised, me with the red handprint blazing on my cheek. The room froze. John Harper, Commander John Harper, my superior, my mentor, the man who'd pulled me out of UCLA and forged me into a weapon, stood in my parents' foyer. And the look on his face was one I'd only seen twice before, once in a bunker in Syria when we'd lost an agent, and once in a safe house in Berlin when a traitor had been uncovered. Cold fury. "Sir," I said automatically, straightening my spine. The switch was instantaneous. Emily Carter, the disgraced daughter, was gone. In her place was Agent Carter, Ghost Hawk lead. Harper's eyes met mine, and I saw the question in them: status? I gave a slight, almost imperceptible shake of my head. Stand down. Family. Not hostile. He understood. His expression didn't change, but he gave a tiny nod. "Who the hell are you?" Brian blustered, recovering first. He took a step forward, trying to use his size. "You can't just break into someone's house." Harper ignored him. His gaze swept over my family, lingering for a moment on my father's ashen face, on my mother's tear-streaked cheeks, on Samantha's phone still pointed at me. Then he looked at me, and in a voice that carried the weight of command, of authority, of a man used to being obeyed without question, he said the words that would shatter my family's world forever. "Captain Carter. I apologize for the interruption, but Night Hawk is live. The package is moving, and we have confirmation of a credible threat to this location. We need you on comms, now." The room was so silent I could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. My father found his voice first. "Captain," he whispered. Samantha lowered her phone slowly, her face a mask of confusion. What is this?" Harper finally acknowledged the rest of them. He reached into his inner suit pocket and withdrew a small, black leather wallet. Flipped it open. The gold shield of the Federal Protective Service caught the light, and beside it, his identification. "Commander John Harper, Federal Protective Service, Special Operations Division," he said, his voice cutting through the stunned silence like a blade. "Emily is not a waitress. She's the commanding officer of Ghost Hawk, a federal counterterrorism task force. And as of 20 minutes ago, we have reason to believe that a high-value target is in this immediate area, potentially connected to this residence." He looked directly at my father, his expression grave. "Sir, your birthday celebration has just become a national security incident. We need to evacuate you immediately. And we need your daughter to do her job." Silence. It was the kind of silence that felt alive, thick and heavy, like the air before a storm breaks. It stretched, second by agonizing second, as Harper's words hung in the foyer, unprocessed, incomprehensible. My father was the first to move. He blinked, slowly, as if trying to clear his vision. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" Harper didn't repeat himself. He didn't need to. He kept his gaze steady on my father, the weight of his authority a physical presence in the room. "Your daughter, sir, is a federal officer. She has been for the past 5 years. The restaurant job is operational cover." A sharp, hysterical laugh erupted from Samantha. "Oh, my God. Emily, you paid him? How much did this cost you? Is he an actor? This is pathetic, even for you." Brian, emboldened by her laughter, took a step toward Harper, waving the stolen wallet. "Get out of here before I call the real cops. This is breaking and entering. And you," he turned to sneer on me. "A federal agent? That's the best you could come up with? What's next? You're secretly a CIA assassin?" Harper didn't look at Brian. His focus shifted to me, and he gave a slight, almost imperceptible tilt of his chin. "Your call, Captain." This was the moment. The point of no return. My cover, meticulously maintained for years, was blown to hell and back. Code Black protocols were clear: exfiltrate, debrief, reassign. New name, new life. I was supposed to walk out that door with Harper and never look back. But I looked at my mother. Her face was a mask of confusion and dawning, fragile hope. I looked at my father, whose disappointment was now warring with stunned disbelief. I looked at Mark, who just looked lost. And I looked at Samantha, her face still twisted in triumphant scorn, utterly convinced this was an elaborate, desperate lie. I couldn't leave them like this. Not with the threat vague. Not with Samantha thinking she'd won. And maybe, a small, wounded part of me admitted, I wanted them to know. I was so damn tired of being nothing in their eyes. It's not a lie, Sam, I said, and my voice was different. It had lost the defensive, weary tone of the little sister. It was the voice I used to brief my team, to coordinate with Langley, to interrogate high-value targets. It was flat, calm, and carried absolute certainty. Commander Harper is my direct superior. Ghost Hawk is a Tier 1 interagency task force reporting to the National Security Council. We handle domestic counterterrorism and high-threat intelligence operations. I reached into the pocket of my wine-stained jeans. I pulled out my own credentials. Not the flimsy FPS cover ID, but the real thing. A black leather folio, worn at the edges. I flipped it open. My photo, stern, unsmiling, hair pulled back severely, stared back. The seal was complex, multi-layered, denoting a special access program. My name, Emily Carter. My rank, Captain. And the line that mattered, Special Activities Division. I handed it to my father. His hands trembled as he took it. He stared at the badge, at the photo, his mouth working soundlessly. Special activities, he murmured, his mind clearly racing through news headlines and spy novels, trying to place it. It means I do things the government doesn't officially acknowledge, I said quietly. I turned to Harper. Commander. Sitrep. What's the credible threat? You said connected to this location. Harper gave a tight nod, all business. At 21:10, Signals Intelligence intercepted a priority Red Phoenix communique. A financial transfer was traced to a shell corporation, which was linked to a known facilitator, who we have just confirmed is in the Santa Monica area. The communique referenced a birthday package and a family gathering as ideal soft targets for a demonstration. Demonstration of what? I asked, my mind already racing, mapping the neighborhood, assessing vulnerabilities. Chemical dispersal device. Small yield, but high terror value. The intelligence suggests the target isn't mass casualties, but proof of concept. A statement. Harper's eyes scanned the room, assessing each person as a potential asset or liability. The facilitator's last known coordinates pinged a cell tower 3 blocks from here 30 minutes ago. The timing and the intel phrasing are too coincidental. We have to assume this residence, or someone in it, is a target vector. My blood went from cold to ice. A chemical device. My family. My father's birthday. Samantha's laughter had died. She was staring at my credentials in my father's hands, her face pale. This is a fake. It has to be. You can buy those online. Harper's head swiveled toward her, and the full force of his attention was like a spotlight. Miss Carter, is it? His voice was deceptively quiet. Your sister's operational security has prevented at least 4 major attacks on domestic soil in the last 18 months. The business trips you mocked her for taking to Cleveland and Phoenix? Those were to dismantle a bioweapon pipeline and arrest a cell planning to bomb a power grid. The night classes she said she was taking? That was advanced forensic accounting training to track terrorist funding. While you were worrying about marketing metrics, she was calculating the blast radius of a peroxide-based explosive in a crowded metro station. Each sentence was a hammer blow. Samantha took a step back as if physically struck. Brian's sneer had vanished, replaced by a sickly pallor. The waitress job, Harper continued, his gaze sweeping over all of them now, provided perfect, low-profile cover. A flexible schedule. A reason for odd hours. A stream of unremarkable faces no one would remember. It was, in fact, a brilliant cover. And her performance evaluations, he said, finally looking back at me with a glint of something that might have been pride, are the highest in my division's history. My mother made a small, choked sound. Oh, Emily, All this time? The lies, the missed holidays. To keep you safe, Mom, I said, the words torn from me. The less you knew, the safer you were. It's called compartmentalization. If you didn't know, you couldn't slip. You couldn't be used against me. I looked pointedly at Samantha. Or against yourselves. The implication hung in the air. My sister, who had just live-streamed my humiliation to her social circle, had been a walking security risk for years. Used how? My father asked, his voice hoarse. He was still clutching my credentials like a lifeline. Harper answered. Sir, the individuals your daughter deals with are not petty criminals. They are ideologically motivated, well-funded, and ruthless. If they had discovered her identity, they would not have come after her first. They would have come after you. To get to her. A birthday party, he said, his eyes locking with my father's, would be considered a target-rich environment. The horror of that statement settled over the room. My father swayed on his feet, and Mark quickly moved to his side, studying him. So what do we do? Mark asked, his voice surprisingly steady. He'd always been the quiet one, the observer. Now, he was looking at me not as his screw-up sister, but as someone in charge. You said evacuate? Affirmative, Harper said. He touched the nearly invisible comms unit in his ear. Whisper team, this is Guardian. Package is secure. Begin soft sweep and prepare for evac. Stand by for green light. He looked back at us. I have a 4-person team outside. We will escort you to a secure location for debriefing and safekeeping. I'm not going anywhere, Samantha blurted out, though her defiance was weak, crumbling. This is insane. This is our house. It is also a potential ground zero, Harper said, his tone leaving no room for argument. He turned to Brian. You. What's your full name and relationship to the family? Brian flinched under the direct attention. Brian Shaw. I'm Samantha's boyfriend. How long have you been dating? 6 months. Why? And you work in? Finance. Investment banking at Crestonwile. Harper's eyes narrowed a fraction. A detail most would miss. I didn't. I knew that look. It was the look he got when a piece of the puzzle clicked, but didn't fit in a good way. Crestonwile, Harper repeated. The shell corporation used for the Phoenix transfer was registered in the Caymans through a series of holding companies. The last law firm of record before the trail went dark was retained by Crestonwile's International Mergers Division. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. All eyes turned to Brian. He threw his hands up, a laugh that was too high, too sharp. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What are you implying? You think I'm some kind of terrorist because I work at a bank? That's crazy. Sam, tell them. Samantha looked from Brian's panicked face to Harper's impassive one, to mine. I was watching Brian, every sense hyper-alert. The slight sheen of sweat on his upper lip. The way his eyes darted toward the kitchen, toward the back door. The way his right hand kept twitching toward his jacket pocket. Brian, I said, my voice quiet. Take your hand out of your pocket. Slowly. What? No. This is bullshit. I'm calling my lawyer. He started to reach into the jacket. Don't. The word was a whip crack. It was Harper. He hadn't moved, but his posture had shifted infinitesimally. He was now between Brian and the rest of the family, one hand resting casually near his hip, where I knew a compact, silenced sidearm was holstered. Your hand. Out. Now. The raw command in his voice brooked no disobedience. Brian froze, his hand halfway into his jacket. His face was chalk white. Emily, please, my mother whispered, her hand clutching my father's arm. I took a step forward, my movements calm, deliberate. Brian. Whatever is in your pocket, it's not worth it. If it's just a phone, we all apologize. But you need to show us. Right now. His eyes were wild, panicked. He looked at Samantha, pleading. Sam, baby, come on. Tell them. This is a mistake. Samantha stared at him. I saw the doubt creeping in, the memory of his too perfect timing, his eagerness to plant the wallet, his casual cruelty toward me. The pieces were starting to align in her mind, and the picture they formed was ugly. Take it out, Brian, she said, her voice trembling. Just take it out and show them it's nothing. Something in his face shattered. The panicked boyfriend act melted away, replaced by a cold, calculating fury that was utterly foreign to the man I'd known. You stupid bitch, he hissed, not at Harper or me, but at Samantha. All you had to do was play along. All you had to do was keep hating your pathetic sister. But no. You had to have your little moment. Had to post it for the whole world to see. He yanked his hand from his pocket. It wasn't a phone. It was a small, black plastic device, about the size of a car key fob, with a single, glowing red button on top. My training kicked in before conscious thought. Down! I roared, lunging not at Brian, but at my mother and father, shoving them backward into the living room. Harper was already moving, a blur of motion. His hand came up, and there was a soft fut sound. Brian screamed. The device clattered to the hardwood floor. Harper had shot it out of his hand, the small caliber round shredding the plastic. Brian clutched his bleeding hand, howling in pain. Before he could take another breath, Harper was on him. A sharp, precise strike to the side of the neck, and Brian crumpled, unconscious. Silence again, broken only by the ragged breathing of my family and the soft buzz of Harper's comms. Guardian to all units, threat neutralized at primary location. Package is a go. I say again, package is a go. Move, move, move. The front door burst open. 2 men and a woman in dark tactical gear swept in, weapons raised but pointed at the floor. They were efficient, silent, their eyes scanning every corner. A 4th agent appeared from the direction of the kitchen, giving a sharp all-clear signal. Family, the female agent, I recognized her as Vargas, from my own Ghost Hawk support team, asked Harper, her eyes taking in the scene, my father on the floor, my mother sobbing, Samantha staring in catatonic shock at Brian's prone form, Mark helping my dad up. Non-combatants. 1 hostile, neutralized, Harper said, nudging Brian with his foot. Secure the device. Carefully. He looked at me. Captain, you're with me. We need to sweep the perimeter. The device is a trigger. The main package is still out there. I was already moving toward him, the familiar adrenaline focus narrowing my world to the mission. But a hand on my arm stopped me. It was my father. His face was ashen, his eyes wide with a terror I'd never seen in him. Not fear for himself, but for me. Emily, you shot that. He's alive, Dad, I said, my voice softening for a fraction of a second. Trank round. Standard issue. I squeezed his hand. Go with Vargas. She'll get you to safety. I have to do my job. I pulled away. As I did, my eyes met Samantha's. All the scorn, the superiority, the vindictive joy was gone. In its place was a hollow, stunned devastation. And something else, a dawning, horrific understanding. Her boyfriend. The man she'd brought into our home, to our father's birthday, had been carrying a detonator. He had used her. He had used her petty jealousy, her need to hurt me, to get close. To plant a weapon. Her lips moved, forming a silent word, Emily. There was no time. No time for apologies, for explanations, for the tsunami of emotions crashing between us. Harper was at the door, holding it open. Carter! Now! I gave my family one last look, my broken father, my weeping mother, my shocked brother, my shattered sister, and then I turned and followed my commander into the night. The waitress was gone. The disappointing daughter was gone. Captain Emily Carter of Ghost Hawk had a job to do. The night air hit my face like a slap, cool and sharp with the salt tang of the Pacific. The quiet suburban street was now a tactical landscape. 2 black SUVs were angled at the curb, engines idling. A 3rd vehicle, a windowless van, blocked the end of the driveway. Shadowy figures moved with efficient purpose around the perimeter of our house, their movements silent, their forms blending into the hedges and shadows. My team. Ghost Hawk. I didn't have time to process the whiplash of it all, the transition from shamed daughter to operational commander in the span of 3 minutes. Harper fell into step beside me, his voice low and urgent. The device Shah had is a dead man's switch trigger. Low frequency, short range. The primary package has to be within 500 meters. We're sweeping the house and grounds now, but we need to find it fast. The intel suggests it's volatile. Movement or a remote signal could set it off. What's the payload? I asked, my mind already categorizing, prioritizing. My cheek still throbbed from Samantha's slap, but the pain was a distant thing, compartmentalized. VX analog. Aerosolized. Fast acting. The goal isn't mass casualties, it's proof of delivery and psychological terror. Hit a family gathering in a wealthy neighborhood, show it can be done, then use the footage and panic to leverage political concessions. A cold knot tightened in my gut. They'd chosen my father's birthday. My family. This wasn't random. The thought was a lightning bolt of pure, icy rage. They'd targeted me. Not Captain Carter, but Emily. They'd used my cover, my life, as the vector. Brian's presence wasn't coincidence. His manipulation of Samantha, it was all calculated. A personal attack wrapped in a geopolitical statement. They know who I am, I said, the words tasting like ash. Harper's jaw tightened. A nearly imperceptible nod. The Phoenix Network has been chasing Ghost Hawk's tail for 2 years. We've disrupted 4 of their major funding operations. This is their retaliation. They ID'd you, traced your family, and saw an opportunity to discredit and eliminate a key operative while making their demonstration. Shaw was the insertion agent. His job was to get the device close and monitor. The primary package is the delivery system. Where? The question was a blade. Best guess? The gift. Shaw arrived with Samantha. He'd have brought something. Something for your father. The present, the gaudily wrapped box sitting on the hall table. Samantha had been so proud of it. Something real, she'd sneered at me, not like whatever cheap thing you brought. I turned and sprinted back into the house. The scene inside was controlled chaos. Vargas and another agent, Chang, had my family huddled in the living room, away from the windows. My mother was crying silently into my father's shoulder. My father stared straight ahead, his face a mask of shock. Mark had an arm around them both, his eyes wide, watching the armed strangers in our home with a mix of fear and awe. Samantha stood apart, her arms wrapped around herself, shivering violently. She stared at Brian's unconscious form where he lay zip-tied on the floor, an agent named Rossi standing over him. My eyes went to the hall table. The box was there, wrapped in gold foil with a ridiculous red bow. About the size of a shoebox. Don't touch that. My command cut through the murmurs. Everyone froze. I pointed at the box. Harper, the package. The birthday present from Samantha and Brian. Harper was already moving, pulling a small scanner from his belt. He approached the box cautiously, the device emitting a soft, pulsating whir. The readings on its screen made his face go grim. Organic compounds. Volatile nitrogen signature. Confirmed. It's the primary. He looked at me. It's rudimentary but effective. A pressure switch underneath the wrapping. Lifting it triggers a chemical mix. The aerosolizer is likely battery-powered, quiet. It would fill this floor of the house in under 60 seconds. Samantha made a choked sound. No, that's the cashmere sweater from Neiman Marcus. I picked it out. He just carried it in. Did you, Samantha? I asked, my voice colder than I intended. Did you actually see him buy it? Or did he present it to you, already wrapped, ready to go? She flinched as if struck again. Her mind was reeling, the foundations of her reality crumbling. Her perfect boyfriend, the wealthy banker who'd made her feel chosen, was a terrorist. The grand gesture birthday gift was a chemical weapon. And the sister she'd spent a lifetime despising was the only one who'd seen the threat. He said he had it wrapped, she whispered, her voice breaking. Captain, Vargas called from the living room archway. We've got Shaw's phone. It's clean. Wiped. Burner. But he's got a second device. Sewn into his jacket lining. It's live. Transmitting a low-grade signal. A homing beacon or a dead man's switch monitor, Harper said. If the signal stops, if we move him or knock him out for too long, it might send a detonate command. Or it could be signaling an outside handler that the package is in position. The pieces slammed together. They're waiting for confirmation. Shaw's job was to get the package inside, signal that it was in place, and then get clear. The trigger in his pocket was his abort or manual detonate. The main trigger is remote, held by someone else. They're out there. Watching. Waiting for the signal that the package is delivered and Shaw is clear. I looked at the box, then at the unconscious Brian, then at my pale, terrified family in the next room. We were on a timer. The moment Shaw's handlers realized he was compromised either by the cessation of his heartbeat monitor signal or by his failure to check in, they'd hit the button. Or they'd see the tactical team swarming the house and decide to cut their losses and make their statement now. We need to move the package. Now, I said. Containment Protocol 7. Harper shook his head. The pressure switch is too sensitive. Moving it even an inch could set it off. We need to disarm it in place. In a house with 5 civilians? You've got 10 seconds to talk me through a solution, Commander. A new voice, calm and technical, came from the doorway. The switch is likely a simple mechanical plate. The weight of the gift itself is keeping it depressed. The chemical compartments are separate, mixing upon release of pressure. I turned. Dr. Eris Thorne, Ghost Hawk's resident WMD and exotic materials specialist, stood there holding a sleek, reinforced case. I hadn't even heard him arrive. He was in his late 50s, bald, with wire-rimmed glasses and the unflappable demeanor of a man who disarmed nightmares for a living. "Document glad you're here," Harper said, a fraction of the tension leaving his shoulders. "The scenario is suboptimal," Thorne remarked, walking toward the table as if approaching a mildly interesting puzzle. He set his case down, popped the latches, and pulled on a pair of multispectral glasses. "The wrapping paper is a problem. It obscures the housing. We cannot cut it without risking lateral pressure on the switch. So we neutralize it with the wrapping on," I said. "Negative. The adhesive or a concealed filament within the paper could be part of the trigger circuit. Removing the paper is step 1. He pulled a small aerosol can from his case. "Cryogenic rapid-set polymer. It will flash freeze the paper and adhesive, making it brittle. We can then shatter and vacuum it away without transmitting shear force to the device beneath." "Do it," Harper said. Thorne gave a curt nod. "Everyone not in Level A gear needs to evacuate beyond the blast containment radius. Which, for this estimated payload, is this house and the 2 adjacent properties. Mom, Dad, Mark, Samantha, you need to go with Vargas." "Now," I said, turning to the living room. My father stood up, his legs unsteady. "Emily, you're staying?" "It's my job, Dad." "But, the bomb." "It's not a bomb, technically," Thorne corrected absently, preparing his spray. "It's a binary dispersal unit. Much trickier." My mother let out a soft sob. "Please, come with us." "I can't." I looked at her, trying to pour a lifetime of apology and explanation into that one glance. "This is my fault. They're here because of me. I finished this." Samantha hadn't moved. She was staring at Brian, then at the innocently wrapped box, then at me. "You knew," she whispered, her voice raw. "You knew he was wrong. You tried to leave. I stopped you. I called you a thief. Her voice hitched. "I hit you." "There's no time for this, Sam," I said, though a part of me ached at the shattered look in her eyes. "Go. Now." Vargas gently but firmly herded them toward the back of the house, where another team would spirit them to a waiting vehicle. My father looked back at me, his expression one of pure, unvarnished terror, not for himself, but for his daughter, who was suddenly a stranger in a war zone. As they disappeared, I turned back to the problem. Thorne was spraying a fine mist over the gold wrapping paper. It crackled and frosted white instantly. Using a small, precise tool, he tapped the edge. The paper splintered like thin ice. A portable vacuum whirred to life, and another agent carefully collected the frozen fragments. Beneath the paper was a plain gray metal box. On its top was a clear plastic window, and through it, I could see 2 sealed compartments filled with different colored liquids. Between them was a piston mechanism. The weight of the box itself was depressing a central plate. Lifting the box would allow the piston to drive forward, smashing the membrane between the 2 compartments, mixing the precursors and activating the dispersal mechanism. "Standard design. Amateur hour, but effective," Thorne murmured. "The switch is simple. Too simple for a remote bypass. We need to simulate the weight while we secure the mechanism." "How?" Harper asked. "We need something of precisely the same weight to place on the switch plate before we can attempt to defuse the lifting mechanism. Approximately 1.8 kilograms. My eyes swept the hall. "A vase? Too heavy. A book?" Too light. My gaze fell on Brian Shaw, still unconscious on the floor. Him, I said. Harper followed my look. His shoes. Belt. Phone. They'll add weight. We can get close. Rossi, strip him. Gently. Keep him on the floor. Rossi and another agent quickly removed Brian's leather shoes, his belt, his watch, and extracted the second signaling device from his jacket, a slim black card that pulsed with a tiny red light. They piled the items next to Thorne. 1.6 kilos, Thorne said, weighing them on a portable scale. Close. We need 200 more grams. I looked down at myself. My boots. My belt. I started unbuckling my belt. Carter, what are you? Harper began. It's my mess, Commander. My family. My op that got burned. I pulled off my leather belt. It was heavy, tooled leather. I tossed it onto the pile. Weigh that. Thorne put it on the scale. 1.85, acceptable. He looked at me. I will need you to place these items. Your hands are smaller than mine. You can slide them into the gap beneath the box as I lift it, a micrometer at a time. One tremor, one slip, and we all die in approximately 12 seconds of agonizing respiratory failure. No pressure. I nodded, stripping off my own jacket to allow for better movement. Tell me when. On my mark. I will lift the southwest corner, the one farthest from the piston mechanism, by 0.5 millimeters. You will slide the weight bundle into that space. Ready? I knelt beside the table, the pile of Brian's belongings and my belt in my hands. Thorne positioned his fingers with surgeon-like precision under the corner of the gray box. Harper, Rossi, and the other agent had faded back, weapons now pointed at the door and windows. The only sound was the hum of the electronics and my own heartbeat in my ears. Mark, Thorne said. His hands didn't seem to move. But I saw the faintest sliver of shadow appear beneath the corner of the box. A gap no wider than a credit card. Moving with a slowness that was agony, I guided the bundled objects toward the gap. The leather of my belt snagged on the rough edge of the table. I stopped breathing. My fingers, trained for steady aim under fire, trembled. I could see the piston in the window, a hair's breadth from moving. With infinite care, I teased the bundle free and pushed it into the gap. Thorne slowly, so slowly, lowered the box. The weight settled. The piston didn't move. A collective, silent exhale filled the room. Weight substituted, Thorne announced. The trigger is stabilized. Now, for the fun part. He opened his case wider, pulling out a series of delicate tools. I need to weld the piston in place, then drain the precursor chemicals into neutralizing baths. This will take 8 minutes. We don't have 8 minutes, Harper said, touching his earpiece. His face darkened. Whispered 2 reports a black van, no plates, circling the block twice. It's parked now, 1 street over. No visual on occupants. They're likely Shaw's handlers. They know he's late. They'll be getting nervous. Can we evacuate Thorne and the device? I asked. Moving it now is preferable to letting it blow here, but the van outside, if they see us bringing a box out, they'll know the op is blown and might trigger it remotely anyway as a contingency. A classic standoff. The device was stable but not safe. The enemy was nearby, watching. And my family was in a vehicle, a sitting duck if the firefight started. We need to draw them out. Control the detonation, I said, thinking aloud. They want confirmation the device is in place before they detonate, right? Shaw's secondary beacon is still live. They know he's inside, the package is inside. They're waiting for his all-clear signal or for the party to reach a critical mass of guests. Your family just evacuated. The house is quiet. That's not a convincing birthday party, Harper said. A grim idea formed. It was reckless. It was deeply, personally dangerous. And it was the only play we had. Then we give them a party, I said, meeting Harper's eyes. Shaw's beacon is still live. We use it. We make them think the op is still green. We make them come to the door for their confirmation. Harper understood immediately. His eyes hardened. You're proposing using yourself as bait. Reactivating the social scenario. They know my face. I'm the primary target. If they see me, alive and oblivious, through a window, having a drink, they'll assume the device is in place and Shaw is just waiting for the perfect moment. They'll want visual confirmation before they hit the button. They'll send someone. And when they do, we take them alive. We get the remote. We end this. It's a high-risk gambit, Carter. It's the only gambit we have. You said it yourself, they're here for me. So I give them me. I looked at the unconscious Brian Shaw. And we give them their asset back. Awake and ready to talk. Part 2, The Gambit. 10 minutes later, the living room looked disturbingly normal. The tactical team had melted into the woodwork, hidden in closets, the kitchen pantry, the hall bathroom. Thorne and his deadly work table were now behind a large, wheeled floor mirror we'd positioned to block the view from the front window. The soft hiss of his tools was the only sound. I stood in the middle of the room, holding a glass of the same Pinot Noir that had been spilled on me an eternity ago. I'd changed my stained blouse for a simple sweater from my old room. My hair was down. I looked, for all the world, like a woman trying to enjoy a quiet drink after a family argument. Across from me, sitting stiffly on the sofa, was Brian Shaw. He was conscious now, his hands zip-tied behind his back, an injector patch on his neck delivering a steady dose of a truth serum derivative that would make him suggestible but not incoherent. A tiny flesh-colored microphone was taped to his throat. His eyes were glassy with fear and the drugs. Harper's voice was a whisper in my own nearly invisible earpiece. Van is still in position. One thermal signature inside, likely the driver. Second signature just appeared, approaching on foot from the north. Male, cautious. He's your likely confirmation man. Showtime, Carter. Get him to the door. I took a sip of wine, the taste bitter on my tongue. Brian, I said, my voice carrying the right note of confused concern. Talk to me. Please. Why would Samantha's own sister make up such an awful story? Federal agents? Here? The script was simple. We'd convinced Brian, in his drugged state, that the federal agent's story was a lie I'd concocted in a desperate bid to win a family argument. That the men who'd assaulted him were actors I'd hired. That it had all gone too far, and now I was sorry, and I just wanted to talk to his friends to explain it was a misunderstanding before the real police got involved. The fiction was thin, but the drugs and his own desperation to believe he wasn't caught made him cling to it. She's jealous, Brian said, the words slightly slurred. He was following the prompts Harper was feeding him through a separate earpiece. Always has been. She must have found out about the investment opportunity. Wanted to sabotage it. Investment opportunity? I prompted, playing the part of the dense, self-involved sister. The birthday present. For your dad. It's a share in a new venture. Very exclusive. My associates, they're very private. They're outside. They just want to wish him a happy birthday. Personally. To welcome him to the venture. Perfect. He was guiding the narrative right where we needed it. Well, they can't just lurk outside, I said, forcing a laugh. It sounded hollow to my ears, but hopefully convincing to a watcher. It's creepy. Why don't you invite them in? I'll get another glass. We can all talk this out. Like adults. Brian's eyes flickered toward the front window. I can call them. No, I said, walking to the front door. My heart was hammering against my ribs. It's more polite to invite them in person. I'll go. You stay here. Rest. You've had a night. I unlocked the front door and stepped out onto the porch. The night air was cooler now. The street was quiet, bathed in the orange glow of the streetlights. I could feel a dozen pairs of ghost hawkeyes on me from the shadows. I hugged myself, playing the part of a slightly tipsy, confused woman. I walked down the front path to the sidewalk, making a show of looking up and down the street. Hello? I called out, my voice carrying. Brian's friends? Are you out here? He'd like you to come in. For a long moment, nothing. Then, from the shadow between two large SUVs parked across the street, a man emerged. He was average in every way, height, build, dressed in dark jeans and a jacket. The kind of face you'd forget instantly. A perfect ghost. He walked toward me, his hands in his pockets. His eyes were chips of flint. You are Emily, he said. It wasn't a question. His accent was faint, almost neutral, but I caught the Eastern European vowel sounds. Yes. And you are? I asked, injecting a little of Samantha's haughtiness into my voice. A friend of Brian's. He said there was trouble. Oh, just a silly family misunderstanding, I said, waving a hand airily. My sister has a wild imagination. Please, come in. Brian's inside. He's explaining everything. The man's eyes scanned me, then the house behind me. He was looking for signs of a trap. For the telltale bulge of a weapon, the wrong shadow in a window. I kept my posture loose, open, non-threatening. After you, he said, gesturing to the path. Polite. Confident. He thought he was in control. He followed me up the path. As we reached the porch, I stumbled slightly on the first step, a calculated bit of clumsiness. He instinctively reached out to steady me. His hand closed on my arm. And in that split second of contact, I saw it. On his wrist, under the cuff of his jacket, a glimpse of black ink. A familiar pattern. A phoenix rising from geometric flames. The phoenix cell's mark. Harper's intel was dead on. Thank you, I murmured, recovering and opening the front door. Right in here. I stepped inside, holding the door for him. He followed, his eyes sweeping the foyer, the living room beyond where Brian sat on the sofa. The door clicked shut behind him. It was the signal. Now, Harper's voice said in my ear. I dropped the act. My posture straightened, my expression went flat and cold. I took 2 quick steps away, putting distance between us. The man's eyes widened, sensing the change. His hand flew toward his jacket. He never made it. Rossi and Chang materialized from the hallway closet and the kitchen entrance like nightmares given form. Rossi's arm snaked around the man's throat in a brutal chokehold, cutting off his cry. Chang delivered a precise, stunning blow to his solar plexus. The man's gun, a compact Glock, clattered to the floor. In 3 seconds, he was disarmed, restrained, and on his knees. Harper stepped out of the shadows of the dining room. Check him. Chang expertly patted him down, pulling a second handgun, 2 knives, and a phone from his person. But Harper's eyes were on the man's left hand. He was clutching something in it, a small, black plastic device, identical to the one Brian had, but with a small LED screen. The remote, Harper said. He pried it from the man's fingers. The screen showed a single, blinking red dot. A timer? A status light? The man, gasping against Rossi's hold, looked from Harper to me, and a grim, blood-streaked smile spread across his face. You are too late, Captain Carter, he hissed, his accent thickening. The package is delivered. The signal is sent. The fire rises. Harper looked at the device. The red light was blinking in a steady, rhythmic pattern. Not a dead man's switch. A confirmation beacon. It had been activated the moment he crossed the threshold. It's not a remote detonator, Harper said, his voice deadly quiet. It's a transmitter. It just sent a go signal. My blood turned to ice. To who? As if in answer, the second signaling device, the one taken from Brian's jacket, now sitting on the hall table next to Thorne's equipment, emitted a sharp, piercing beep. Then its tiny red light turned a solid, malevolent green. From behind the mirror, Dr. Thorne's voice was calm but urgent. I have a secondary activation signal. Internal power source just came online. I have a timer. How long? Harper and I demanded in unison. 70 seconds. And counting. The weight substitution trick won't work. The chemical mix is now primed. Any interruption in the power to the locking solenoid will result in immediate dispersal. I cannot stop it from here. I need to physically disconnect the power source, which is inside the housing. I need 60 seconds, minimum. We had less than 70 seconds. And the power source was inside the booby-trapped box. The man on the floor began to laugh, a wet, choking sound. You cannot stop it. The fire cleanses. It begins with your house of lies, Captain. Your family first. Then your team. Then your whole corrupt world. I looked at Harper. His face was granite. There were no good options. We couldn't move the device. Thorne couldn't defuse it in time. My eyes landed on the sliding glass door that led to the backyard. The pool. My father's prized, deep-end, concrete-lined pool. The pool, I said. Harper followed my gaze. The water will neutralize the chemicals? No, Thorne's voice came, sharp. Water will likely accelerate dispersal over a wider area. The aerosol mechanism will still function underwater, creating a contaminated plume. It's worse. Not if it's contained, I said, my mind racing. We seal the device in something watertight, sink it in the deep end. The water pressure will contain any blast, and the container will prevent dispersal until the chemicals neutralize each other or we can recover it. We have a hazmat capsule in the van, Chang said. For evidence transport. It's rated for corrosive materials. It might contain the blast. Might? Harper snapped. It's never been tested against a binary VX mix, sir, Chang admitted. Get it? Now. 50 seconds, Thorne's voice was strained. Chang bolted out the front door. I ran to the hall table. The gray box now had a small digital display on its side, counting down from 54, 53. We need to get it into the capsule and into the water before that timer hits 0, I said. Rossi, get him out of here. I pointed to the captured Phoenix operative. Rossi dragged the still laughing man toward the back of the house. I looked at the box. 1.8 kilograms of simulated weight holding the switch down. The capsule was heavy. We'd have to transfer the weight and the box into the capsule in one fluid motion. Chang returned, hauling a heavy, cylindrical stainless steel case about the size of a small beer keg. He popped the latches. Inside was dense, shock-absorbent foam with a custom-cut hollow. On my mark, I said, my hands hovering over the gray box. Thorne was beside me, a set of clamps ready. We lift, you slide the capsule under, we lower. In one move. Ready? Ready, Thorne and Chang said in unison. 30, 29. Now! Thorne's clamps bit into the sides of the gray box. In a single, horrifyingly smooth motion, he lifted it straight up, a quarter of an inch. Chang slammed the hazmat capsule onto the table where the box had been. Thorne lowered the box into the foam hollow. The weight bundle, Brian's shoes, my belt, was still on the table. The switch plate was unsupported. A high-pitched whine began to emanate from the box. The solenoid! Thorne yelled. It's cycling. 15, 14. Seal it! I screamed. Chang slammed the lid of the capsule shut. The latches clicked home with a heavy, final sound. The whine became muffled. The pool! Go! I grabbed one handle of the heavy capsule, Chang the other. We ran, half dragging, half carrying the dead weight toward the sliding door. Harper wrenched it open. 0807. We stumbled onto the patio. The pool glimmered under the security lights. 05. We heaved the capsule up onto the pool's edge. 04. With a final, grunting shove, we pushed it over. It hit the water with a massive splash and sank like a stone, heading straight for the drain at the deep end. 03, 02, 01. We all hit the deck, covering our heads. A dull, heavy thum reverberated through the ground, more a deep vibration than a sound. The pool water bulged upward in the center, a huge, temporary dome of water that then collapsed back in on itself with a violent splash. The lights in the pool flickered and died. A few bubbles burped to the surface, then nothing. Silence. Then, the whine of the filtration system restarting, struggling with the disturbed water. I lay on the cool concrete, gasping for air. Next to me, Chang was doing the same. Harper stood over us, his weapon still drawn, scanning the darkness. After a long moment, Thorne's voice came over the comms, breathless. No chemical signatures detected in the air. Containment appears successful. The water in the pool is showing elevated toxins, but they are not aerosolizing. The capsule held. A shaky, hysterical laugh bubbled up in my throat. We'd done it. The house, the neighborhood, my family, they were safe. Harper reached down and hauled me to my feet. His grip was firm, steadying. Nice thinking, Captain. Unorthodox, but effective. I nodded, unable to speak, the adrenaline crash hitting me like a truck. From the back of the house, I could hear the sounds of my family being brought back in, their voices a confused, frightened babble. Then, a new sound. A sharp cry. A woman's voice. Samantha's. No! Let me go! I turned. Vargas was half leading, half dragging Samantha back into the living room from the safe room. My sister's face was streaked with tears, her eyes wild. She broke free of Vargas's grip and her eyes locked on me. She didn't look at me with hatred, or jealousy, or scorn. She looked at me with a raw, desperate anguish I'd never seen before. And then she ran toward me, not to attack, but to collapse. She fell to her knees on the patio stones, not at my feet, but close enough. She wrapped her arms around my legs, her body racked with sobs. "I'm sorry, Emily. Oh God, I'm so sorry. He used me. I was so stupid. I hated you so much and he used it. He could have killed Mom and Dad. He could have killed Mark. He used me to hurt you, to hurt all of us. And you saved us. You saved me." Her words poured out in a torrent of grief and shame. I stood there, frozen, looking down at the sister who had spent a lifetime as my antagonist, now shattered at my feet. The sister who had slapped me, humiliated me, betrayed me. The sister who had been an unwitting pawn in a plot that could have ended us all. I didn't know what to feel. The rage was still there, a hot coal in my chest. But it was banked now, smothered under a wave of exhaustion and a hollow ache. I looked over her head, into the living room. My mother and father stood in the doorway, holding each other, their faces pale with shock and dawning, horrifying understanding. Mark stood behind them, his hand on our father's shoulder, his gaze fixed on me with something like awe. The tactical team was securing the prisoner, checking the capsule in the pool, speaking in low, professional tones into their comms. The crisis was over. The immediate threat was neutralized. But as I looked at my weeping sister, at my shell-shocked parents, I knew the real fallout was just beginning. The lies of 5 years were laid bare. The danger I lived with had crashed into their safe, sunny world. And the carefully constructed wall between Emily Carter, the waitress, and Captain Carter, the ghost, had been obliterated. Harper's hand landed on my shoulder, a brief, solid weight. "Debrief in 15. Your family will be taken to a secure location. You need to come with me." His voice softened, just a fraction. "You did good, Carter. You saved them all." I nodded slowly. I had saved them. From the bomb, from the gas, from the terrorists. But as I gently, stiffly, extracted my legs from Samantha's grasp, I wondered if I could ever save us from what came next. From the truth. From the broken trust. From the fact that the woman they thought they knew had never really existed at all. I turned and followed Harper back into the house, leaving my sobbing sister on the patio floor. The waitress was gone. The sister was broken. All that remained was the soldier. And the soldier had a job to finish. The silence that followed Samantha's breakdown was heavy, layered with the hum of the pool filter, the distant murmur of the tactical team, and the ragged sound of my own breathing. I stood there, looking down at my sister, a vortex of conflicting emotions churning inside me. Pity, yes. A weary understanding. But the anger, the deep-seated hurt from a lifetime of belittlement, wasn't so easily dispelled. It sat in my chest like a cold, hard stone. Harper's hand on my shoulder tightened, a silent command to compartmentalize. The soldier over the sister. "Carter. We're not clear." His words cut through the emotional fog. I looked at him. "The device is contained. The primary threat is neutralized." "The primary device," he corrected, his voice low. Shaw and his handler were the ground team. Their job was placement and confirmation. Phoenix doesn't work with single points of failure. They always have a redundancy. A backup. Ice water flooded my veins. "You think there's a second device?" "I know there is." The intel intercept was vague on location, but specific on payload, dual delivery, assured outcome. We assumed it meant the binary nature of the chemical. I was wrong. It means 2 separate units. The implications were staggering. Where? That's what we need to find out. And we need to find it before the cell's command structure realizes the first op is compromised and decides to trigger the backup remotely, or worse, sends a second trigger team. He released my shoulder and turned to Rossi. "Secure the prisoner in the van. I want a full-spectrum interrogation, now. Focus on the location of the secondary package. Use whatever means necessary, within parameters." The look in Harper's eyes said the parameters were very, very broad. Rossi nodded, hauling the now silent Phoenix operative to his feet and marching him out. I looked back at my family. My mother was kneeling beside Samantha, trying to comfort her, though her own hands were shaking uncontrollably. My father stood like a statue, staring at the dark, disturbed water of the swimming pool that had just swallowed a chemical weapon. Mark was on his phone, likely texting a friend, his face a mask of bewildered shock. They were civilians in the crossfire. And the crossfire wasn't over. Thorne, I called out. The doctor was packing his equipment, his movements methodical. I need you to run a particulate sweep of the entire property, inside and out. Look for any residue, any trace signature that matches the primary device's chemical makeup. If a second package was here, even briefly, it might have left a trail. Thorne adjusted his glasses. A sensible approach. The precursor chemicals are notoriously sticky. Even sealed, minor off-gassing is possible. I'll begin in the areas of highest probability, the entryways, the room where the gift was initially stored. Do it. I turned to Chang. I want a full forensic workup on Brian Shaw. Everything. His phone records for the last 6 months, his financials, his car's GPS history. He's been dating my sister for 6 months. He's been in and out of this house, my parents' cars, maybe their vacation cabin in Big Bear. He had access. I want to know every place he's been. On it, Captain, Chang said, moving to a compact field computer setup on the dining table. Harper was on his own secure sat phone, his voice a low, tense murmur. Confirmed, primary is contained. Secondary is suspected. Requesting immediate QRF backup and a full biohazard containment unit for site cleanup and evidence collection. Negative, the family cannot be released to civilian shelters. They're material witnesses and potential ongoing targets. They come with us to the secure site. Acknowledged. Harper out. He snapped the phone shut. Quick reaction force is 10 minutes out. A cleanup crew is 20. We have a narrow window to find the secondary device before the street becomes a military cordon and the press gets wind of it. The clock was ticking again. A different kind of pressure, more diffuse but no less deadly. I moved into the living room. My family's eyes followed me. I saw fear, confusion, and in my father's eyes, a dawning, awful pride. Emily, my mother began, her voice trembling. What's happening now? Is it over? No, Mom. It's not over. I kept my voice calm, factual. The commander briefing anxious civilians. We have reason to believe there may be a second device. We're searching for it now. You all need to stay exactly where you are. Do not touch anything. Do not go into any rooms alone. The teams will direct you. A second, my father's voice failed. He sank into an armchair, looking every one of his 60 years and then some. In my house. My God, Emily, who are these people? Why do they want to hurt us? They don't want to hurt you, Dad, I said, the truth bitter. They want to hurt me. You're the tool to do it. This is my world. And I'm sorry, so sorry, that it crashed into yours. Samantha, still on the floor, wiped her face with a trembling hand. She looked up at me, her mascara smeared into dark circles under her eyes. Brian, he asked me about the house security system last month. Said he was thinking of installing one like it at his condo. I showed him the control panel. In the garage. I showed him the motion sensors, the door contacts. A lead. A cold, sickening lead. The garage, I repeated. And he helped Dad bring in the new wine fridge a few weeks ago. It's in the basement. He was down there for a while, said he was helping Dad hook up the gas line for the connection. The basement. The garage. 2 locations. Both places a device could be hidden, with access to the main living areas via ventilation or simply by proximity. Chang, prioritize the basement and garage on the sweep. Thorne, with me. I headed for the door to the basement, Harper a step behind me. Emily, wait. It was Samantha. She struggled to her feet. Let me help. Please. I know the house. I know where he went, what he touched. You're a civilian, Sam, I said, not unkindly but firmly. You're not trained for this. I'm the reason he was here. The words were a desperate cry. I brought the wolf into the den. Let me do something. Let me try to fix it. Harper and I exchanged a glance. It was against every protocol. But she had intimate knowledge of Shaw's movements. And time was the one resource we had the least of. Stay behind us, Harper said, his tone leaving no room for argument. You point. You do not touch. You speak only when spoken to. Clear? She nodded vigorously, wiping her nose on her sleeve, a gesture so unlike the poised, perfect Samantha it was jarring. The four of us, Harper, Thorne, Samantha, and I, descended the stairs into the finished basement. It was a typical California rec room, a large screen TV, a sectional sofa, a wet bar, and my father's prized, temperature-controlled wine cellar, a walk-in closet-sized room with a heavy, sealed door. Where exactly did he go? I asked, my eyes scanning the room. It looked normal. Peaceful. A world away from the tension upstairs. Samantha pointed to the wine cellar. In there. He and Dad were wrestling with the new wine fridge unit. It's a fancy one that has a nitrogen cartridge system for preserving open bottles. Brian was asking a lot of questions about the gas line hookup. He was down here for maybe 20 minutes while Dad went upstairs to get a tool. A nitrogen cartridge system. A perfect cover for a pressurized chemical dispenser. Thorne was already scanning the door of the wine cellar with his multispectral device. The readings beeped softly. Trace organophosphates. Faint, but present. More concentrated here than anywhere else in the house. This is a likely location. My heart sank. The wine cellar was a sealed environment. If a device went off in there, the concentrated aerosol would be trapped, but the second the door opened, it would flood the basement, then likely seep through the ventilation into the rest of the house. Can you scan through the door? Harper asked. Limited penetration. The door is insulated. I'm getting a shape, metallic, rectangular, approximately the size of a large book. It's on the floor, near the back wall, close to the new cooling unit. Thorne adjusted a dial. I'm also reading a power source. Small battery. And a radio receiver. It's live. It's receiving a periodic pulse. The remote trigger signal, I said. The same one that activated the timer on the first device. The handler outside had the transmitter. He sent the go signal before we took him down. It activated both devices. So it's on a timer? Samantha asked, her voice small. Possibly. Or it could be on a remote trigger held by someone else further up the chain, Harper said grimly. We need to get in there and neutralize it. The door is likely wired, Thorne said. Opening it may be the trigger. Or the motion of the door. Or it could be on a simple timer, counting down right now. How long? I asked. Without visual confirmation, I cannot say. The signal it's receiving is a standby pulse. The detonate command would be a different signal. The fact that it hasn't gone off suggests the detonate command hasn't been sent, yet. So we have to go in before whoever has the other remote decides to push the button, I concluded. I looked at the door. It was a standard interior door with a simple handle lock. We can't go through the door. We go through the wall. Harper nodded. Chang. Get the breaching kit. We're making a new entrance. Minutes later, Chang and another agent were carefully measuring a section of the drywall adjacent to the wine cellar, but not sharing a stud wall with any other room. They used a thermal camera to map the studs and, more importantly, any wiring or pipes. The goal was to create an access hole large enough for a person, directly into the cellar, bypassing the door entirely. As they worked with silent efficiency, I pulled Samantha aside, near the base of the stairs. Sam, I need you to think. Did Brian give you anything else to hold? For Dad, or for Mom? Anything that seemed odd? A paperweight, a decorative box, a new router for the internet? She frowned, thinking hard, her brow furrowed in concentration. It was a new expression on her, one of effort, of usefulness, not of spite. He gave me a necklace. For my birthday last month. A locket. He said it was a family heirloom. It was heavy. I never opened it. I thought it was sweet. Old-fashioned. A locket. A small, sealed container. Where is it? Upstairs. In my jewelry box. Show me. We went back upstairs, under the watchful eye of Vargas. The master bedroom was untouched, a sanctuary that now felt violated. Samantha went to her ornate jewelry box on the dresser and opened it. Nestled in a velvet ring holder was a tarnished silver locket on a chain. It was oval, about the size of a quarter, and yes, it looked heavy for its size. "Don't touch it," I said. I pulled a pair of nitrile gloves from a pocket in my tack vest and picked it up. It was cold. Too cold for room temperature. I held it carefully, listening. A faint, almost imperceptible hum. "Thorn!" I called out. He came up the stairs, his scanner in hand. I held the locket out. He passed the wand over it. The scanner shrieked in alarm. "High concentration of the same chemical precursor. This is it. The secondary device. Microdispersal unit. The locket is a pressurized vial. The clasp is likely the trigger. Opening it, or a remote signal, would shatter the internal membrane and release the contents as a fine mist. Effective range, probably this room. Lethal to anyone inside." Samantha made a gagging sound, her hand flying to her mouth. She had been wearing a chemical weapon around her neck. She had slept with it on her nightstand. "It's a targeted backup," Harper said, joining us. "The main device for the family gathering. This one, just for her. Or for whoever was closest to her." Poetic, in a sick way. He gave her the means of her own death, disguised as a token of affection. Samantha began to cry again, silent, shuddering sobs. The psychological brutality of it was overwhelming. "Contain it," I told Thorn, my voice hard. He took the locket with reverence and placed it in a second, smaller hazmat capsule. "Basement breach is ready, Captain," Chang's voice came over the comms. "The secondary is secured," I reported. "Proceed with the cellar breach and recovery." Cautiously, we went back downstairs. The agents had cut a near-perfect, person-sized rectangle in the drywall. The insulation and the back of the wine cellar's interior wall were visible. Using a rotary saw with a diamond blade, they carefully cut through the inner wall, creating a silent, dusty opening. Thorn scanned through the hole first. Device confirmed. Same design as the primary, but smaller. It is attached to the nitrogen canister port of the new wine fridge. Clever. It would use the fridge's own gas distribution system to spread the agent. Timer is active. I have a reading, 4 minutes and 12 seconds. A collective breath was held. 4 minutes. "Can you defuse it through the opening?" Harper asked. "Negative. I need direct access to the solenoid and the power source. I have to go in." "I'll go," I said. "It's my house." "You're the mission commander," Harper countered. "I'll go. With all due respect, sir, you're the commander. I have more recent field experience with ordnance disposal." Thorn talks me through it. I was already pulling on a heavier set of gloves and a respirator. The basement device was more volatile, the sealed room meant higher concentration if it blew. Harper's jaw worked, but he nodded. "You have 3 minutes. After that, we fall back and collapse the house on it. A grim option. It would destroy my parents' home, but potentially contain the blast." I took a compact toolkit from Thorn and, with a deep breath, crouched and crawled through the hole into the wine cellar. The room was cool, dark, and smelled of oak and dust. My headlamp beam cut through the gloom, illuminating racks of bottles and the sleek, new wine fridge unit. And there, attached to its side with industrial straps, was the gray metal box. Its digital timer glowed an ominous red, 3:47. 3:46. I'm in. I have visual on the device. It's strapped to the wine fridge. The trigger mechanism appears to be linked to the fridge's power supply and its gas line solenoid. Thorn's voice was calm in my ear. "Describe the connections." I leaned closer, my heart a drum in my ears. 2 wires. Red and black, spliced into the fridge's main power cord. A thin, flexible tube leading from the device into the fridge's nitrogen injection port. The power wires are likely the timer and the solenoid activator. The tube is the delivery method. You need to isolate the device from the fridge's power. Cut the wires. But you must cut them in the correct order. If you cut the power to the device timer first, it may interpret it as a failure and trigger. If you cut the solenoid control wire first, it may release the chemicals. "Which one first?" I asked, my voice steady despite the adrenaline. "I need to see the circuit. Can you describe the junction where the wires meet the device housing?" I peered at the small, sealed box where the wires entered. It was covered by a plastic cap. "There's a cap." I'm removing it. Using fine pliers, I carefully popped the cap off. Inside was a small, crowded circuit board. I see the board. The red wire solders to a point marked VIN. The black to GND. There's a third wire, blue, that goes from the board to a separate relay that is connected to the gas line solenoid. The blue wire is the trigger. The red and black are power. The device is using the fridge's power, but it likely has its own capacitor for a few seconds of operation in case of power failure. You need to disable the blue wire's control without interrupting power. Can you see a fuse on the board? Or a resistor you can solder? I scanned the board. My training included basic electronics for exactly this reason. Near the blue wire's solder point was a tiny, surface mount resistor. There's a resistor. Marked R7. It's in line with the blue wire. Desolder it. That should break the control circuit without causing a power interruption. Use the low-temperature soldering iron in your kit. Be precise. One stray blob could bridge a connection and trigger it. My hands were rock steady. I had defused IEDs in moving vehicles, in crowded marketplaces, with sniper fire pinging around me. This was just another device. Even if it was in my parents' basement. I selected the fine-tipped iron, heated it, and touched it to the tiny solder joints on either end of the resistor. A wisp of smoke. The tiny component came free. I lifted it away with tweezers. Resistor R7 is removed. Good. Now, the device is inert, but the timer is still active and the chemicals are still pressurized. We need to safely depressurize and drain the compartments. Do you see a manual release valve? Usually a small, recessed screw. I ran my light over the box. Near the bottom was a tiny, hex-headed screw. Found it. That is the mechanical bypass. Turning it counterclockwise will slowly vent the pressurized precursor into a neutralization chamber within the device itself. Turn it slowly. 1 full rotation, then wait 5 seconds. Listen for a hiss. I fitted a hex key to the screw. 2:15 on the timer. I took a breath and turned. A low, slow hiss escaped. I waited. The hissing subsided. Good. Continue. 3 full rotations, then wait. The timer will likely freeze once internal pressure equalizes. I turned the screw twice more, pausing between each rotation. The angry red timer digits blinked, then froze at 1:58. The hissing stopped, replaced by a faint gurgling sound. Pressure is equalized. The chemicals are mixing in the neutralization chamber. It will become hot. That's normal. The reaction is exothermic. Once it cools, it will be a stable, inert gel. You can now disconnect the power wires. Cut the red wire first, then the black. I used wire cutters. Snip. Snip. The device was dead. Primary and secondary devices are neutralized, I reported, the words heavy with relief. I crawled back out of the hole, covered in drywall dust, to a room full of tense faces. Harper gave a single, sharp nod. Good work, Captain. Thorne, recover the device. Chang, sweep the rest of the property one more time. I want this place clean. The adrenaline began to ebb, leaving a profound exhaustion in its wake. The immediate physical threat was over. Both devices were found, contained, or neutralized. The cell's ground team was in custody. The QRF vehicles would arrive soon to seal the area. I pulled off the respirator and gloves, leaning against the basement wall. Samantha was staring at me, her eyes huge. The reality of what I had just done, crawled into a room with a live chemical weapon and disarmed it with steady hands, was finally, truly sinking in for her. You could have died, she whispered. It's my job, I said, the response automatic. No, my father's voice came from the stairs. He had come down, my mother clinging to his arm. He looked at me, and the disappointment was gone, burned away by the night's fire. In its place was a raw, awestruck fear. It's who you are. The next hour was a blur of controlled military precision. The QRF, a platoon of grim-faced soldiers in full MOPP gear, sealed off the street. The biohazard team, looking like astronauts, entered and began the meticulous process of removing the capsule from the pool and the devices from the basement and jewelry box. My family and I were escorted to a nondescript black van with darkened windows. We were taken not to a police station or a federal building, but to a bland, mid-tier business hotel near the airport. The entire top floor had been secured. It was a Ghost Hawk safe house, used for debriefings and witness protection. The rooms were clean, impersonal, and swept daily for bugs. We were put in a 2-bedroom suite. My parents in one room, Mark and Samantha in the other. I was given the adjoining room, connected by a door. Harper was next door in a commandeered room that now hummed with communications equipment. A medic checked us all for exposure, drawing blood just in case. We were given plain gray sweats to change into. Our clothes were taken as evidence. Sitting in the sterile living area of the suite, in identical sweats, the hierarchy of our family was stripped bare. We were just 5 shocked people, bound by blood and trauma. Harper entered, followed by an agent with a tray of coffee and sandwiches. No one touched the food. The street is locked down under a Homeland Security incident cover, a suspected gas leak, Harper said, his voice cutting through the heavy silence. The press is being managed. Your neighbors are being interviewed, but they'll be given a bland story. Your direct involvement, Emily's especially, will not be made public. As far as the world is concerned, this was a foiled domestic terror plot with no specific target. The heroic Federal Protective Service intervened. And Brian? Samantha asked, her voice hollow. She was curled in an armchair, looking small and young. In custody. Singing like a canary, hoping for a deal. He was a low-level asset. Recruited for his access, not his ideology. Money and the thrill. He's given us names, locations. The network is already unraveling. The man from the street is harder, but he'll break. We'll get the cell lead, and the financier behind it. And then, my father asked. And then Emily goes back to work. And you, Harper looked at each of them. You have a choice. You can enter the Federal Witness Security Program. New identities, relocation, a clean break. It's the safest option. Your connection to Emily is burned. Your targets now, as long as Phoenix or any other group holds a grudge. Or, my mother asked, her hand finding my father's. Or you go back to your lives. With heightened security details, panic buttons, routine checks. The threat will diminish over time, especially as we dismantle the network, but it will never be zero. Not as long as Emily is in the field. All eyes turned to me. The unspoken question hung in the air, will you stay in the field? I looked at my hands. They were clean now, but I could still feel the fine tremors of adrenaline, the weight of the hex key. This was my life. The lies, the danger, the weight of secrets. It was also the most important thing I'd ever done. Could I walk away? After tonight, seeing the direct consequences, could I stay? I need some air, I said abruptly, standing up. I couldn't have this conversation here, now, with all of them looking at me. I needed to talk to Harper alone. I walked into my room. A moment later, Harper followed, closing the connecting door to the suite behind him. The room was sparse. A bed, a desk, a chair. I went to the window, looking out at the airport lights in the distance. The mundane world, carrying on, oblivious to the war that had just been fought in a suburban basement. That was a hell of a thing you did tonight, Carter, Harper said, standing by the door. Professionally and personally. I compromised the mission, I said, the guilt finally surfacing. My family was targeted because of me. My cover was blown because I couldn't keep my sister from slapping me at a birthday party. The op is burned. Phoenix knows my face, my name, my family. The op was burned the moment Phoenix identified you, which was likely months ago. Tonight, we turned their op back on them. We captured 2 assets, recovered 2 WMDs, and have a direct line into a cell we've been hunting for 2 years. Because of you. Because you kept your cool when the world was falling apart around you. You didn't break cover, even when it meant taking a slap on live video. You made the hard call to use your sister as an asset. You disarmed a chemical weapon in your parents' basement. You saved lives. That's not a compromise. That's a victory. His words were like a bomb on a raw wound, but they didn't erase the cost. My family, they'll never look at me the same way. No, he agreed quietly. They won't. They'll look at you and see a stranger, and a hero, and a source of unimaginable danger. It's a heavy burden. One you've been carrying alone for 5 years. Now they have to share it. What do I do, John? I asked, using his first name, something I almost never did. I was asking as Emily, not as Captain Carter. He was silent for a long moment. The service needs you. Ghost Hawk needs you. The work you do, it matters. It stopped a chemical attack in Santa Monica tonight. It stopped worse. You're one of the best I've ever commanded. He paused. But you're also a daughter. A sister. The decision to stay in, it can't just be about the mission anymore. Not after this. You have to decide if the cost to them, and to you, is still worth it. If I leave, who does the work? Someone else. Maybe not as well. Maybe not in time. That's the guilt trip they lay on you in training, and it's real. But it's also not your sole responsibility to carry the world. He stepped closer. Take the week. Debrief. Process. Talk to your family. Then decide. Whatever you choose, you have my support. And my respect. He left me alone in the room. I stayed at the window for a long time. The soldier in me was already analyzing the mission, the tactics, the points of failure. The sister, the daughter, was reeling from the shattered relationships, the spoken and unspoken words. After a while, there was a soft knock on the door connecting to the suite. Not Harper's firm rap. A tentative tap. Come in. The door opened slowly. It was Samantha. She hovered in the doorway, looking lost in the oversized sweats. Can I talk to you? Alone? I nodded, gesturing to the room's only chair. She took it, perching on the edge. I sat on the foot of the bed, facing her. The distance between us felt like a chasm. I don't even know where to start, she began, her eyes on the carpet. I'm sorry doesn't cover it. It's a pathetic, stupid word for what I did. For what I've been doing for years. Why, Sam? The question escaped before I could stop it. It was the core of it, the childhood hurt given voice. Why did you hate me so much? She flinched, but didn't look away. I didn't hate you. I was jealous. The admission seemed to cost her. You were always so sure of yourself. Even when you were failing, you had this calm. Like you knew a secret. It drove me crazy. I worked so hard to be perfect. The grades, the sports, the right friends, the right career. I did everything I was supposed to do. And Dad was proud, but it was a busy pride. He was checking off boxes. With you, even when he was disappointed, he was engaged. He worried about you. He fought with you. It was real. What I had felt, performative. And then you'd just take it. The criticism, the comparisons. You never fought back. I thought it was because you were weak. Now I know, it was because you were so much stronger. You were living a whole other life, fighting real monsters, and I was picking fights over place settings and wine stains. The raw honesty was disarming. I saw my sister, not as the villain of my story, but as a flawed, hurting person who had built her identity on sand next to what she perceived as my rock. I wasn't stronger, Sam. I was absent. I checked out of this family because I had to. The secrets, they wall you off. You become an island. I saw your perfect life and I was jealous too. That you got to have a normal life. That you could care about things like what fork to use. My world is blood and shadows and moral compromises that would give you nightmares. She finally looked up, her eyes meeting mine. They were red-rimmed, but clear. Is it worth it? I thought of the faces of people I'd never know, living their lives because of an intercept I'd made, a door I'd kicked in, a device I'd disarmed. I thought of the weight of the badge in my pocket. Then I thought of the terror in my mother's eyes, the shock in my father's, the dust from the drywall on my hands in my own basement. Most days, I said honestly. But not today. Today, the cost feels too high. Don't you dare. The words were sharp, surprising us both. She leaned forward. Don't you dare quit because of me. Because of what I did. What headed using me. If you quit, then they win twice. They hurt our family, and they take a good agent out of the fight. I may not understand your world, but I saw you tonight. I saw who you really are. And it's terrifying. And it's the most incredible thing I've ever seen. A tear traced a path through the dust still smudged on her cheek. I spent my life trying to be better than you. And I just found out I never even knew what the competition was. I don't want to be the reason you stop. I want I want to try to be the sister of someone who does that. If you'll let me. The chasm between us didn't vanish, but a fragile, narrow bridge stretched across it. The offer was there. Not forgiveness, that would take time, but the chance to build something new. Something real. It's dangerous, Sam. Being connected to me. I think I got that lesson, she said with a weak, watery smile. Panic buttons and security details, right? I can live with that. I can't live with knowing I made you give up who you are. The door opened again. My parents stood there, holding hands. They had heard. My mother's face was streaked with tears, but she was smiling softly. My father looked at me, and for the first time in my memory, I saw no disappointment, no frustration. I saw understanding, and a grief for the years we'd lost, and a fierce, blazing pride. We'll take the security detail, my father said, his voice firm. We're not going into hiding. This is our home. You're our daughter. We stand together. He looked at Samantha, then back at me. All of us. It wasn't a tidy resolution. The trauma of the night was a fresh wound. The secrets of the past were a minefield we'd have to navigate. The danger was a permanent new fact of life. But in that sterile hotel room, for the first time, my family saw me. Not the fiction of the failure, but the complicated, dangerous truth of who I was. And they didn't flinch. They reached out. The soldier in me knew the fight was far from over. The Phoenix Network was wounded, not dead. There would be other missions, other threats, other nights where the weight of the world would press down. But the sister, the daughter, she finally felt like she might be coming home. Harper was right. It was a victory. A messy, painful, costly one. But a victory nonetheless. I looked at my family, broken, scared, but united, and I knew my answer. I wouldn't quit. The fight needed me. And now, finally, I had something real to fight for. 1 week later. The official story held a thwarted domestic terror plot, a swift federal response, a grateful community. My parents' street had reopened, the gas leak repaired. The pool had been drained, scrubbed, and refilled by a discreet, government-contracted crew. The only physical scars were a patched section of basement drywall and a lingering, faint chemical smell in the wine cellar that the cleanup teams assured us was harmless and would dissipate. The psychological scars ran deeper. They were etched in the new silence that fell over family dinners, in the way my mother would jump at the sound of a car door slamming outside, in the haunted look in my father's eyes when he thought no one was watching. We were all living in the Safe House Hotel suite, a temporary arrangement that stretched into an awkward, indefinite present. Harper had argued for Witsec. My father had refused with a stubbornness I hadn't known he possessed. We run, and they've already won, he'd said, echoing my own thoughts from that night. So, a compromise, round-the-clock security. 2 agents in a car outside the hotel, 2 more at the house once we returned. Panic buttons installed in every room. A direct line to a Ghost Hawk emergency desk. I spent my days in debriefings. Windowless rooms at a nondescript federal building downtown. Harper, a stone-faced psychologist from Internal Affairs, and a rotating cast of analysts from the CIA, FBI, and Homeland Security. They wanted every detail, from the first moment Brian Shaw entered our lives to the final twist of the hex screw in the basement. They dissected my tradecraft, my emotional state, my decisions. The slap was a point of intense interest. Had I compromised? Could I have maintained cover? I told them the truth, taking the slap was maintaining cover. Breaking Samantha's arm would have blown it definitively. They didn't find it amusing. The nights were for my family. Stilted, painful attempts at normalcy in a suite that felt like a gilded cage. We ordered takeout. We watched inane game shows. We avoided the news. Samantha was the most changed. The vindictive spark was gone, extinguished by a torrent of shame and guilt. She was quiet, helpful in a clumsy, desperate way, fetching coffee, folding laundry, her movements those of a stranger in her own life. She'd deleted all her social media accounts. The video of me, the one that had never had a chance to go viral thanks to Ghost Hawk's rapid content suppression, was a ghost haunting her. She'd look at me sometimes, open her mouth to speak, and then close it, the words failing her. It was a Tuesday night, 7 days after the birthday, when the dam finally broke. We were picking at Chinese food from cardboard containers. A sitcom laughed hollowly on the TV. I resigned from Crestonwell, Samantha announced abruptly, her voice cutting through the canned laughter. We all looked at her. My father set his fork down. Sam, honey, you loved that job. You don't have to. I didn't love it. I loved what it represented. Status. Success. Something to hold over Emily. She didn't look at me. Brian got the job there. He recommended me. It was all part of it. The whole thing, my whole life for the last 6 months, was a setup. A lie. I can't walk back into that building. What will you do? My mother asked gently. I don't know. Samantha's voice was small. But I'm going to start by trying to be a better sister. A better daughter. Finally, she looked at me. Her eyes were pools of unresolved pain. I know I don't get to ask for anything. But, can you teach me? Teach you what? I asked, bewildered. How to be, not afraid. How to see what's really there. You looked at Brian and you saw a threat. I looked at him and I saw validation. I want to learn how to see. I want to understand your world, even a little bit, so I'm never that blind again. It was the most vulnerable thing she'd ever said to me. The bridge between us, so fragile, felt a little stronger. It's not a skill you learn in a classroom, Sam, I said softly. It's a mindset. Constant suspicion. Questioning everything. It's exhausting. And lonely. I'm exhausted, she said with a weak smile. And I've never felt more lonely in my life. So maybe I'm ready for the first part. A small, surprised laugh escaped my mother. Then my father chuckled. It was a tired, broken sound, but it was real. Mark shook his head, a grin tugging at his lips. Only our family, he muttered. My sister the spy teaches my other sister how to be paranoid. Next you'll be showing us how to build a bomb out of soy sauce packets. The tension in the room cracked, just a little. We finished the meal with actual, if hesitant, conversation. About nothing important. The weather. An old movie. It was the first step on a long road. Later, as I was rinsing containers in the small kitchenette, Harper called. Carter. Debrief is concluded. Findings are favorable. A few notes on compartmentalization stress, but overall, your actions are deemed to have saved lives and advanced the Phoenix investigation significantly. Shaw's information led to 2 more arrests in New York. The money trail is getting hotter. That's good, I said, leaning against the counter, the weight of the week pressing down. There's more. He paused. The director is impressed. There's going to be a ceremony. Private. At Langley. The Intelligence Star. I went still. The Intelligence Star was one of the highest decorations awarded for valor in the clandestine service. It was a medal you couldn't wear in public, a citation that would never see the light of day. But within the community, it meant everything. I was just doing my job, I managed to say, the words feeling inadequate. You did it exceptionally, under uniquely personal duress. It's being recognized. The ceremony is Friday. Your family, they can't attend. It's beyond classified. But I thought you should know. Thank you, sir. One more thing. His tone shifted, became less formal. The offer for a new identity, a teaching post at the farm, it still stands. After this, no one would question it. You've more than paid your dues. He was giving me an out, again. A graceful exit. A life with fewer shadows, less immediate danger to the people I loved. I'll think about it, I said, which was not a no. Do that. Get some rest, Carter. You've earned it. He hung up. I stood in the quiet kitchenette, the murmur of my family's voices from the other room a soft backdrop. The Intelligence Star. Validation from the only world that had truly known me for 5 years. It should have felt like a triumph. Instead, it felt like an epitaph for the simple life I'd never really had. 2 days later, we returned home. The house felt different. Familiar yet foreign, like a dream of a place I'd once known. The agents did a final sweep, pronounced it clean, and took up their positions outside. We were alone, as a family, for the first time since the nightmare began. It was my mother who broke the uneasy silence. I'm going to make a proper dinner. In my own kitchen. It was a declaration of normalcy, a tiny act of rebellion. We all pitched in. Samantha chopped vegetables with intense concentration. Mark set the table. My father opened a bottle of wine, his hands steadier than I'd seen them in a week. I stirred a sauce. We ate at the dining room table, the same table where the first act of the drama had unfolded. The ghost of the gold-wrapped box sat in an empty chair. But we talked. Really talked. Not about the events of that night, but about the years that led to it. My father told stories of my childhood stubbornness, my refusal to cry when I fell, which he now saw as a precursor to the steel he'd witnessed. My mother confessed she'd always suspected my flakiness was a cover for deep preoccupation, though she'd imagined a secret boyfriend or an addiction, not a counterterrorism unit. Mark admitted he'd been jealous of the attention Samantha's drama and my failure generated, feeling invisible in the middle. And Samantha listened. And when it was her turn, she didn't make excuses. She described the prison of her own perfectionism, the hollow victories, the way she'd weaponized our parents' worry about me to secure her own position as the good one. It was brutal, cathartic, and heartbreaking. After dinner, Samantha followed me upstairs to my old bedroom. It was a time capsule of a younger me, band posters, academic decathlon trophies, nothing that hinted at the future ghost. "Can I see it?" she asked quietly. "See what?" Your real stuff. The badge. Or whatever." I hesitated, then walked to the closet. From a hidden panel in the back, a modification I'd made years ago, I pulled out a small, fireproof lockbox. I keyed in the code and opened it. Inside, resting on a bed of black velvet, was the folio holding my credentials, a spare encrypted communicator, a non-traceable 9mm pistol, and a simple, unadorned silver ring, my academy class ring from a school that didn't officially exist. I handed her the credential folio. She took it as if it were holy. Opened it. Stared at the badge, the photo, the weight of it. "It's real," she whispered, tracing the seal with a finger. "It is. And this?" She pointed to the ring. "Graduation. Top of my class." A flicker of pride, long suppressed, surfaced. "Why do you keep it here? Isn't that a security risk?" "It's the one place I'm always supposed to be." Emily Carter, the waitress. "Hiding it here is the last thing they'd expect. Sometimes the best place to hide a tree is in a forest." I paused. "It's also a reminder of who I am when I'm not here." She closed the folio, handed it back with reverence. "Thank you for showing me." She took a deep breath. "I'm seeing a therapist. Starting tomorrow. One the agency recommended. She specializes in trauma for intelligence families." I blinked, surprised. Harper hadn't mentioned that. "That's a good idea, Sam. For all of us. I'm also enrolling in community college. For forensic accounting." Now I was stunned. "What?" A ghost of her old, defiant smile touched her lips. "You track terrorist money, right? It's accounting. Just with higher stakes. I'm good with numbers. I want to be useful. Maybe not in the field, but somewhere. So I can understand. So I can help, in some small way." The vulnerability returned. "If that's okay." My throat tightened. This was her penance, and her path forward. Not just saying sorry, but reshaping her life to align with the new, harsh reality she'd been forced to see. "It's more than okay," I said, my voice thick. It's amazing." We talked for over an hour. About nothing and everything. The conversation we should have had a decade ago. When she finally left for bed, the space between us didn't feel like a minefield anymore. It felt like a construction site. Messy, full of rubble, but with a blueprint for something new. Friday arrived. I told my family I had a mandatory federal debriefing out of town. It wasn't entirely a lie. Harper picked me up in a black sedan. I wore a simple, dark suit. He was in his dress uniform, medals on his chest. We didn't speak much on the drive to the private airfield. The flight to DC was smooth. A car met us at Andrews. We were driven to the CIA headquarters at Langley, but not through the main entrance. We entered via a subterranean tunnel, our identities verified at 3 separate checkpoints. The ceremony was held in a small, wood-paneled auditorium deep within the headquarters. Maybe 50 people were present. Men and women in suits and uniforms, their faces etched with the same knowing calm, the same seeing into the abyss look that I saw in the mirror. This was my tribe. The ghosts. The Director of National Intelligence himself presided. The citation was read aloud, sanitized for the room. It spoke of exceptional courage and presence of mind in neutralizing a catastrophic WMD threat on domestic soil while under severe personal and operational duress. It mentioned protecting countless innocent lives through deliberate, selfless action. My name was not spoken. I was the officer. The metal was heavy, cool against my palm. A simple silver star suspended from a blue and white ribbon. I shook the director's hand, nodded to the quiet applause. Harper pinned the ribbon to my suit jacket, his eyes meeting mine with a depth of pride and understanding that needed no words. After, there was a small reception. Clusters of powerful people spoke in low tones. Harper introduced me to a few, a legend from the Cold War, a cyberops guru who'd dismantled a foreign power grid, a woman who'd spent 7 years undercover in a cartel. They nodded to me, a silent welcome to the innermost circle. One, a grizzled man with eyes like chips of flint, gripped my hand and said, "Heard about the pool. Good improvisation. Remember, the rulebook is written in the blood of those who followed it blindly. Sometimes you have to write your own page." It was the highest praise I could have received. Later, on the balcony overlooking the gleaming CIA atrium, Harper found me. I was holding the medal, feeling its weight. "Still thinking about the farm?" he asked, sipping a club soda. I looked out at the symbol of the institution I served, vast, secretive, and powerful. I thought of my family's tentative steps toward a new normal. Of Samantha's determination to learn forensic accounting. Of my father's quiet pride. Of the panic buttons and the security detail that would now be a permanent part of their lives. "If I take the teaching post," I said slowly, "who leads Ghost Hawk?" "Vargas is ready. She's smart, tough. Not as intuitive as you, but she'd grow into it." "And the Phoenix Network?" "We're close. I can feel it." "We are. And someone else will close the net. The work continues, Carter. With or without you. That's the first thing you have to accept. You are not indispensable to the mission. You are only indispensable to the people who love you." He was giving me permission to leave. Truly giving it. I thought of the hollow feeling in the safe house, of wanting to be in the field. I thought of the satisfying click of the hex screw, the rush of neutralizing a tangible threat. I thought of the exhausted, proud faces of my team. I thought of the sister who now wanted to understand, not condemn, my world. "I'm not ready for the farm," I said, the decision crystallizing as I spoke the words. "The Phoenix Network is my op. I blew my cover on it. I want to be the one to burn it to the ground. For my family. For me." Harper nodded, as if he'd expected nothing less. A small, grim smile touched his lips. "I'll inform the director. Welcome back, Captain Carter. We have a cell leader to find. Intel suggests he's in Europe. Prague, maybe. You leave in 72 hours. 72 hours. A long weekend with my family, knowing I was heading back into the shadows. It was a different kind of goodbye. Not a lie, but a painful truth. "There's a condition," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "My family gets full, transparent briefings from a liaison. Within reason. No more total blackouts. They know the broad strokes now. They deserve to know if I'm going dark for a month, even if they don't know where. Samantha, she's getting help. She wants to understand. I won't lie to them by omission anymore. Not like before." Harper considered this. It was a breach of protocol. A big one. It's a risk. Compartmentalization exists for a reason. Their ignorance almost got them killed. Knowledge is a risk, but it's a risk they've chosen. I need to know they have a lifeline, someone to call who isn't just a panic button operator. It'll make me a better officer. Fewer distractions. He stared at me for a long moment, then sighed. "I'll see what I can do." A dedicated family liaison. Limited, sanitized information. It's unprecedented, but so is a chemical weapon at a birthday party in Santa Monica. Maybe we need new precedents. "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me. Just get me the Phoenix controller." He clapped me on the shoulder. "Now, go home. Spend time with your family. You ship out Monday." The weekend was bittersweet, shot through with a new, fragile honesty. I told them I had a deployment coming up. I couldn't say where or for how long. They didn't ask for details. My father just gripped my shoulder and said, "Come home safe." My mother hugged me for a long time. Mark gave me a complicated handshake hug. "Kick ass, Em," he mumbled. Samantha helped me pack. Not for a waitressing shift, but for an extended operational tour. She didn't flinch from the tactical gear, the medical kit, the locked case for the sidearm. She folded my clothes with meticulous care. "Will you be, in danger?" she asked, not looking at me as she placed rolled socks in a corner of the duffel bag. "Always," I said honestly. "But it's a calculated danger. I'll have a team. Good intel. The best training in the world." She nodded, accepting it. "The therapist," she said, "I have something called moral injury. Not just trauma, but injury from violating my own sense of right and wrong. By being so cruel. By being used to hurt you." She finally looked up, her eyes clear. "Helping you pack, it doesn't fix it. But it feels like a step in the right direction." "It is, Sam. Thank you." On Sunday evening, we had a barbecue in the backyard, by the pool that had once held a weapon of mass destruction. The security detail, 2 agents named Davis and Lynn, accepted burgers with polite nods, their eyes never stopping their scan of the perimeter. It was our new normal, and we were, haltingly, learning to live with it. As the sun set, painting the sky in oranges and purples, I stood by the pool's edge with my father. "I'm proud of you, Emily," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "Not for the medals, or the spy stuff. I'm proud of the woman you are. The strength, the compassion you showed your sister even after everything. That's the real victory." Tears pricked my eyes. I leaned my head against his shoulder, a gesture from childhood. "I'm sorry I lied, Dad. For so long. You were keeping us safe. I understand that now. I wish I'd been someone you felt you could trust with the truth sooner. The truth is a heavy burden. I didn't want to put it on you. We're family. We carry burdens together. That's the deal." He put his arm around me. "So you go do what you have to do. We'll be here." With our panic buttons and our very serious friends in the SUV. He tried for a joke, but it fell flat. The worry was there, in the grip of his hand on my shoulder. But it was a worried pride, not a disappointed fear. Later, as I did a final check of my gear, Harper called. "Liaison is approved. Dr. Eris Thorne." I was surprised. "Thorne? The WMD guy?" He requested it. Said he's tired of only seeing families when they're in crisis. He's brilliant, has the clearances, and he's utterly unflappable. Your father can discuss wine with him, your sister can grill him on forensic chemistry, and your mother can mother him. He'll give them the bare minimum they need to sleep at night, and he'll be their direct line if things go sideways. It's a good fit. It was. Thorne's calm, factual demeanor would be a steadying influence. "Thank you, John. Really. Just come back in one piece, Carter." Dismissed. Monday morning, before dawn, a car arrived. Not Harper's sedan. A dusty, anonymous compact car. The driver was Vargas. She was dressed for travel, her face all business. "Wheels up in 90, Captain. Let's move." I hugged my mother, my father, my brother. I turned to Samantha. She didn't hug me. Instead, she snapped to a ridiculously formal, straight-backed attention and gave me a crisp, awkward salute. Tears welled in my eyes as I laughed. I returned the salute, just as crisply. Then I pulled her into a fierce, tight hug. "Take care of them," I whispered. "You take care of you," she whispered back, her voice breaking. I picked up my duffel bag, gave my family one last look, a tableau of love, fear, and hard-won understanding, and got into the passenger seat. Vargas pulled away from the curb. I didn't look back. The soldier was re-engaged. "Mission brief is in the back," Vargas said, merging onto the freeway toward LAX. "Target is confirmed in Prague. Going by the name Kovar. Check for Smith. He's the one who greenlit the Santa Monica op. The one who thought targeting a federal agent's family was a good idea." A cold, focused fury settled in my gut, burning away the last of the weekend's softness. "Good. Harper said you had a choice. Teaching, or this." I did. "Why this?" I looked out the window as the city lights gave way to the gray pre-dawn. I thought of the medal in my lockbox, of the wine stain now washed out of my blouse, of the new understanding in my father's eyes, of the salute from my sister. Because I'm Emily Carter, I said, my voice calm and certain. The waitress was the cover story. This is the real one. Vargas nodded, a small smile on her lips. Welcome back, Captain. The car sped towards the airport, towards the waiting jet, towards the shadows and the fight. I was going back to war. But for the first time, I wasn't leaving a lie behind. I was leaving a home. And that made all the difference.